Welcome everyone to Wednesdays at 1. I'm Carol Stewart of the Employment Sector Council, and I'm joined by my co-host Jessica Gowers of the Workforce Planning and Development Board. Our Wednesdays at 1 series is supported by the City of London as part of its efforts to drive community and economic recovery across our region by bringing us all together to learn, share, and to connect with each other. We're planning lots of interesting topics and conversations for 2022, so we hope that you will continue to join us. And as always, we love to receive your ideas for future sessions. Today, we're joined by Wessam Ayad, who is the Workplace Inclusion Charter Supervisor at Keys Job Center in Kingston. And she is an EDI consultant and training facilitator. I was very fortunate to hear Wessam speak recently at the Growing Your Workforce conference, and I was captivated by her energy and her expertise. And we are so happy to have her here today to discuss EDI and moving from awareness to action. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Carol, for a great introduction, and thank you so much for having me today. I'm very excited about this session, and I guess that we will be talking a lot. And I want to kind of ensure everyone here that this is a very safe space for everyone to talk, ask questions, give inputs, whatever you think of, please share it with us. We are all here to learn together. So I'm gonna, jump into the presentation, and if you feel like I'm going fast, I'm a very fast talker, by the way. I'm trying to work on that though. So if you feel that I'm talking too fast, please let me know, and I'm happy to slow down. Okay, so we are going to talk today about equity, diversity, inclusion, and how to start that whole journey to make sure that it's helping us doing our roles on a daily basis. So when I usually start to talk about equity, diversity, and inclusion, I would like to start by kind of, understanding who we are, who would like to talk about EDI, and why, and what is the need, and how we would achieve the target that we are aiming for. So having that said, we would start from there. Who are we, and what do we want, and how to achieve it? That's kind of gonna be the structure for today's session or today's conversation. Okay, so I'm gonna start by myself, I guess. I'm sinking under the table. It's just my camera, I'm not actually sinking here. But for some reason, my camera is shaking today. So who am I? So thanks to Carol, she has introduced me in a very kind way about my role and what I'm doing and why I'm here maybe for. However, sometime I would like to introduce myself from a bit of a different perspective, from an identity perspective. So having that said, I would like to introduce myself that I am a woman. I am an immigrant, first generation. I am from the BIPOC community, Black, Indigenous, People of Color community. I am a Muslim, I am hijabi, and I am an EDI advocate and the Workplace Inclusion Charter Supervisor at Keys Job Center. And having all of that said, maybe as people working in the employment sector, you can expect how many exclusion experiences I have found when I first came to Canada. Okay, and why am I here today? I'm here today because I'm very excited to support you in your EDI needs, not only through my personal experience, but also through my professional experience. So let's start. Are you all ready to start? Thumbs up? Okay, great. Okay, now equity, diversity, inclusion in supporting talent's foot in the door. I guess that this is what I'm thinking again, oh my gosh. Okay, so again, as I have started by introducing myself, I would like every one of you, and I would encourage every one of you to take a moment to kind of introduce themselves, not maybe even sharing the introduction of themselves, but, talking about who they are and what is their role in today's session. So I guess this is kind of my assumption about who we are, who we all are today. We are either employment specialists, and please correct me if I'm mistaken. So we are all either employment specialists that we always ask that question on a daily basis. How can we support you, right? When we meet with our clients, or job seekers, those are the clients that we actually support, unfortunately, who face barriers to cultural diversity. And what do they need is help, tips, assistance, guidance, support, advice. Right? Am I correct so far? Amazing. Okay, how we would do that. Equity, diversity, inclusion in supporting employers. So we have talked about two people or two groups of people that could be in today's session. First of all, the employment specialists and the job seekers who are the clients that we are trying to help. Who is the third category of people who might be present today in our conversation? Job developers that actually support client/employment specialists, and employers that clients or their employment specialist colleagues would ask their support to voice skill and develop jobs. And employers would ask support that they definitely need the best fit. And they would like to achieve the welcome to the team sign for their clients and employment specialist clients by creating a barrier-free workplace. And this is actually me if I would be a job developer. I guess it's a lot to ask. Okay, so we are here today because we really want to support you doing all of this. So in order to support clients, that's kind of usually my strategy, because I have been in that role before, by the way. So in order to support clients getting their feet in the door, I guess that we want to start from the end. Why our clients don't get their feet in the door. What are the barriers to cultural diversity? Why employers don't get them on board? So before that, I would say, so can you please join me and tell me, as employment specialist experts here, what are the barriers that you think prevent your talents from joining the workforce? Any inputs?
I'll jump in. Hello. Currently right now, I think one idea is education, just that transferable education from out of Canada to what does that mean kind of here in Canada, Ontario. So that's one idea.
Of course, that's totally true. So education from outside of Canada specifically. And I see something in the chat box. Sometimes we see a lack of confidence. Yes. Lack of confidence, you mean from the talent side, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Wessam, that was my answers. Yeah, I noticed like in our programs, we see people that they just feel nervous. A lot of times I think that they see that they don't feel worthy of going through with a job or a position. So we get a lot with some of our programs.
Of course, and I definitely can kind of echo that. People get nervous, unfortunately, because of the many exclusion experiences that they have lived or heard about. So that's one of the things that play a big role in terms of self-confidence, that usually people, when they are trying, especially we are talking about talent who are from the underrepresented groups, when they are trying to secure jobs, they're either hearing from others, you know, how that is hard, or they have experienced that themselves multiple times and they reach that kind of level in which they are very disappointed, frustrated, having lack of self-confidence because they feel that they are not worthwhile, because they have gone through multiple interviews or multiple job applications and never got a call, so they started to doubt themselves. So it's a kind of trauma associated with the exclusion experiences. So anybody else who might think of why employers don't get those talents on board? Why they kind of not really accepting them? Okay, so I'm gonna give you some hints here. So yes, unconscious bias. Thank you so much, Natasha. Lack of experience. Yes, lack of experience. This is a very important thing that we would discuss right now in details. So we can, I have assumed and listed, and according to my experience, some of the reasons here. Please let me know if you relate to any of those reasons, you feel that you have encountered that before, or you think that this is very far away from your experience. So lack of understanding of credential recognition system, that's what Susan has shared with us, like education from outside of the country. What does that mean? Like you have a bachelor degree in business administration from Egypt. That's me, by the way. So what does that mean? How I would translate that here? Performance bias. Have you ever heard about a performance bias thing? And by the way, it's a part, or it's a type of unconscious bias, because unconscious bias is huge. So performance bias is one of those types of unconscious bias. Have you ever heard about that? Any inputs? Yep, that they would not fit within the organization culture. Yes. I've never heard of that. No. Okay. Okay. So performance bias, what's wrong with this camera today? It doesn't like my face. Okay. So performance bias means it's been searched for so many years. It's been researched by many researchers and institutions, and they have found that in the majority of the research that they have done, there is a suggestion that strongly believe that hiring managers or hiring committees, they have what's so-called performance bias, which means when they meet with one of the dominant group candidates, like white male, white Canadian, and they interview them, they feel that probably they will have the potential to perform that job. Sometimes it's even happening between men and women. There is that pre-assumption that men are able to do something that women are not able to do it. So performance bias means that hiring managers are putting in their mind that probably Canadian candidates are more able, having better potential to achieve their targets and perform well in the job. While with non-Canadians, they think they don't have that potential and they need to be proving that by actual experiences and achievements. And that's why they stress on list your achievement. Tell me what did you achieve? They want some evidences that would prove that you can do the job, because they can't think unconsciously, they cannot think that you have the potential. There is something that's programmed there that made them feel that probably you don't have the same potential as a Canadian person. So that's one of the big obstacles that actually underrepresented candidates would face when they're trying to get jobs. The third thing is confirmation bias. Did anyone hear about confirmation bias before? It's very related to the performance bias. No? Okay, I'll jump in. So confirmation bias is the step that the brain does to complete the performance bias picture. So I am a hiring manager from a white background. I feel that this Black person is not having the potential that they would be making good job. I'm gonna look into evidences to confirm my bias. So I would feel relaxed and that I wasn't judgmental. There are evidences that I can use in front of the rest of the hiring committee, or at least to myself, so I don't feel the guilt or the bias. So instead of thinking the way that they might think with white Canadians or white candidates, to look for evidences that those people are able to make the job, they rather search for evidence that they cannot. To make sure that they are not judgmental people, and yes, this person doesn't fit. So this is another big barrier that our clients face when they're trying to get a job. Monoculture approach, specifically in conflict resolution. As someone has mentioned here, I guess it was Sloan, I guess, might feel that they would not fit within the organizational culture. Exactly, that's the monoculture approach. We are all coming, like I always give that example, I'm gonna give it today as well. If I am a workplace that has a group of white people, another best fit will definitely be another white person, right? So that's kind of the monoculture approach, that I have a specific culture. If those people are not fitting in that culture, they cannot be there. Specifically in conflict resolution, and that's what we call the comfort zone. Like, I know that people from my culture would find a way to resolve their conflict in a way that's agreed upon by everyone. But if I would bring someone different into the team and conflict would arise, how they would be actually resolving those conflicts, I want to stay away from all of this. So that's one of the barriers as well. Lack of Canadian experience, which is, of course, you all know that it's illegal to ask, though it is always asked in a way that's not direct. Or stereotyping. Oh, you're Muslim, you're putting hijab, so probably you are not a social person, you are not gonna shake hands with people, you are not gonna laugh, that's gonna be really bad, I don't wanna be with you in the same office, right? Or financial reasons, and this is another part that we will discuss specifically when we come to the part of the JDs or the job developers. Because financial reasons could be like, oh, why should I spend all this money to become inclusive and accommodating people while I don't need to actually spend that money if I'm having a homogeneous group, right? So this is the questions that probably JDs would relate to. Okay, so having that said, I'm gonna actually be inviting all of you to share with me your thoughts about how can we counter-argue those barriers as employment specialists. So lack of understanding of credential recognition system. As Susan has mentioned that, you know, many employers might think that, oh, you got your bachelor degree from India, from Egypt, from, you know, any place in the world other than Canada, so I don't really understand what does that mean. And if you have the same kind of qualifications that other people who have been graduated from Canada have, how can we counter-argue that?
I think, Wessam, if employers can be encouraged and supported in making sure that their job descriptions and so forth reflect a desire to be, you know, inclusive or an intention.
Definitely, that's 100%. And there are lots of things that we can offer to employers, but having in mind that we are not employers in this session today, I would like to see what we as employment specialists could do. What's in our hands that we can actually offer? How can we support? Remember, that was the first question. So how can we support in such a hard situation? Yes, Sloan, please.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. I was just wondering, like, with we could possibly, you know, lobby the government to kind of change some of the difficulties in having some credentials from other countries recognized within Canada, because that seems to be a huge barrier, not only for the client who's job searching, but also for, you know, employers possibly who are looking to hire these, but, you know, but the systems are so difficult to navigate and so difficult to have those credentials recognized under Canadian standards. So I think if we lobby the government or whatever way we could possibly ask the government to kind of make that process a lot easier would be very beneficial for everyone.
100%. That's a great solution, and I would call that's the macro solution that we all need as advocates and professionals in the field to kind of advocate for our clients through, and trying to push and encourage the government to take actual better measures towards internationally trained people and international graduates. And that's, of course, something that I would be very happy to join any effort for. And by the way, it's really worthwhile to mention as well that there are some moves towards that. And there is a bill in front of the Parliament right now, specifically for engineers in the financial sector, specifically accountant, that would actually suggest dropping some of the requirements for making the equivalencies for those professions. So hopefully that this is going to be accepted as a law and it would move forward. So it would definitely help specifically engineers, you know, and accountants in Canada who are internationally trained. However, again, this is kind of a great long-term vision. But when you have your client at the other side of your desk feeling that urge that they need to have the job, and you really feel that you want to support them, how can we do that? So if it's about the lack of understanding of credential recognition system, there is something that I usually use with my clients, or back in the days I was using with my clients, is that the jobs in Canada, and most of the employers don't know about that, but you definitely know about it, that, you know, jobs in Canada are categorized, either regulated jobs or unregulated jobs. The unregulated jobs, which don't have any regulatory body, they don't even need to be recognized. They are by nature equivalent. That's the system in Canada. So if I have a bachelor degree in business administration, if I have a bachelor degree in journalism, if I have a bachelor degree in banking, if I have a bachelor degree in commerce, if I have all in customer service, in whatever, except medical field, engineering field, accounting, and as only as chartered accountant, but bookkeepers as well are open to anyone who's internationally trained or graduated. So that's very important to be communicated to the clients. They don't actually need to be recognized. It is equivalent. And if they want to take that extra measure, which actually employers don't ask about in many cases, but if they would like to ensure that they are having in place the proof, they can definitely do the report of equivalency with ICAS or the WES, which are the agencies of credential recognition systems in Canada that actually would give them the report that says that they are equivalent to any graduate from Canada. They can present that even in the resume. So that would answer that question for whoever doing the first screening of the resume. Oh, it is like I have my resume saying so: bachelor degree in business administration, Egypt, University of blah blah blah. Then equivalency by ICAS, bachelor degree of business administration from Canada. So I would communicate that. I would be a proactive talent communicating that with the employer. So I would stop that barrier. I would break that barrier. Does that make sense? Easy, but has a lot of impact. Okay. So, and we will be actually jumping between these two slides frequently. So that's number one, performance bias. Again, if you remember, I have mentioned that performance bias means that, you know, employers, when they read the resume, the first thing that comes to mind, oh, their name is Jan. So they are not actually graduated from here. So probably they are not going to be able to achieve what I would ask them to achieve. Where are the evidence? What did they achieve? And then they would skip everything and look for the achievement part. And if there's no achievement part that's very highlighted, they would just throw the resume in the garbage. Not necessarily every employer, but could be easily done. So in order to counter the performance bias, we need to make sure that we are not giving that option to the employer through the resume or the application, that they would think that I'm not able to do that or to perform the job. So I need to match all of my experiences with the requirements of the job and making sure that my achievements are a separate section in the resume that's highlighted. So when they're kind of scrolling down to look where the achievements are, they would see, you know, number of achievements. They don't need to be from inside Canada, but this person has proved that they were able, they have been always able to achieve things. Right? Okay. Confirmation bias. So remember, when the employers would assume unconsciously that this candidate is not able to perform the job, they would look for evidences to confirm their bias. So counter that by putting evidences that would actually break that would destroy that thought in the first place. Don't give them the opportunity to have evidences that you are not the very good fit for that job. Review the resume multiple times by different eyes to look for evidences that could be saying in a way that you are not very familiar with the job or not very familiar with the organization, or your experience is not related to the requirements, or that you don't have the soft skills required. Make sure that if you are the person who's criticizing that resume, that you are trying to look for those evidence and you cannot find them. Before that, you would encourage your client to send their application. Does that make sense? Any questions, input so far? Yeah. Actually, monoculture approach. So before that, we would jump into the monoculture approach. I would like also to jump in here in order, you know, to highlight the supports. So talking about the monoculture, it means that employers are really seeking homogeneous people, people who they are familiar with. They are familiar with their culture. They are sure that they would fit. However, when I'm talking, I'm saying the word same, having the same, similar a lot, which means from an economical perspective that there is no unique or there is no big opportunity for a unique or what so-called competitive advantage or competitive qualification. If we are all graduated from the same system, if we have all lived in the same country, if we have been raised more or less in similar ways, then probably we are thinking similar as well. And that's why they need us, right? Because they want kind of, peace of mind, right? So that also all of that comes also with a drawback of not having any unique advantage. Like what? Like languages. So every single immigrant, for example, in Canada, at least is bilingual, English plus another language. Sometimes trilingual like myself, sometimes even speak 5 languages like some of my colleagues. Global connections. So I have been living in that country, in another country for so many years, working in that similar industry that I'm trying to apply for in here. Imagine how many connections I have over there, that I can maybe open some channels, in the globalization era that we are living in the internet, era that we are living in, that small world that we are living in. Imagine my connections. So having that said, encourage your clients to highlight their competitive advantage that employers cannot find easily in other white Canadian candidates. Resilience. So if you are talking about diversity from a perspective of people who have disabilities, imagine how those people are resilient, and imagine how that resiliency could be translated as a soft skill in conflict resolution, in overcoming problems, solving, troubleshooting in the core of the business. So make sure if you have a disabled or someone who's self-identified as a disabled talent, that they would highlight their resilience through some of their achievements and how did they actually overcome such barriers, such a job in such a place, because how resilient they are, how persistent they are. Cultural intelligence. And you will find me using 3 words today about culture. Cultural intelligence, cultural sensitivity, cultural humility, and never cultural competency. And I'm gonna ask you a question here. So, have you heard the word cultural competency before? And what does that mean to you? So, any thoughts?
I think, Wessam, this is the idea that you, as an outsider to a culture, somehow you can become competent in understanding that culture.
Exactly. Exactly. So competency, competent, that's even, the word that's used in the job ads, for example. Competency is required. So you are able, you can do that, right? So when we say culture, like honestly, it's a big topic and people usually say that, like we have a workshop in cultural competency, we are doing such a training in cultural competency. For me, at least for me, I feel that this is, and not only for me, honestly, this is like a whole move and a concept, but I see that there is no such thing in the world. I cannot be culturally competent in all of the cultures. Like I can be, knowledgeable in some, but of course I can't achieve cultural competency. How I would be competent in all the cultures? Even people from underrepresented groups, they cannot be culturally competent. That's an impossible mission. And honestly, I think that it contributes to tokenism. It contributes to checking boxes. Oh, I have done such a workshop. Now I understand I'm culturally competent. No, you can't be. However, there is another concept that I'm really big fan of, which is cultural humility. Cultural humility means that I am learning all the time. And I am eager to learn all the time because I will never reach the time that I would say, oh, I have finished it off. I am culturally competent. I understand all the cultures. I'm very sensitive to everyone. I can do it all. No way. Even if you can do, let's imagine the impossible, like that genius person who is able to do it at some point, they're not gonna be that forever because things change, culture changes, right? So instead, use the word cultural humidity. And why am I emphasizing this and what does that have to do with you as an employment specialist is that having that said, that your talent, when they are doing their interviews or their application or their resume, if they highlight the fact that they are culturally sensitive and adopt cultural humility approach when working with others, that would stop the employer or the hiring management to read that sentence and at least Google it. And when they would Google it, they would understand that, oh, like maybe I'm in the same situation. Maybe I don't know everything. Maybe I need to meet with that person so I would understand more about their culture. As if you are inviting them to open the door to their mind to admit cultural humility. So that's also something that you need to focus on while supporting your clients building their application. Okay, make sure you answer the experience question in a creative way. Again, Canadian experience, lack of experience, illegal question, but always asked in different ways. Okay, I can actually summarize all what I have written here in just one word. Do you think that a bunch of Canadian people need another Canadian person? What is the addition? Like, you don't really need the same exact person again. You have lots of them, right? So it's not a gap that you are having a person from a different background. It's an addition. So that's something that they need actually to say when they are interviewed, and even highlighted in a way in resume, that their background is considered an asset, is considered an addition to the approach and to the success that has been implemented in that organization for decades. It's an addition. It's not a gap. Okay, and it's also an addition in finding solutions. If we are all coming from the same background, it's very likely that we all would think about the same solution for the same problem, or at least similarly, if not the same. But having fresh mind from a different place would probably bring different solutions to troubleshoot. Okay. Of course, this is kind of, something that could be also presented very politically by talents, but maybe more boldly by job developers, given the relationship with employers. That actually representing diversity is good for the reputation of the company. And now we are in the social media era. So if someone says something bad about an organization, it's not me telling Jessica. It's me telling the world in a post. So the impact is like, oh my gosh. So employers need to be careful of that as well. How do they want to position their workplaces or their organization in that world and in their communities? Okay, the third piece that you really would like to focus on while supporting your clients, I guess, is them knowing their rights. Many talents and job seekers would be in that state that they are afraid to ask anything. They just want the job, right? They would make any sacrifice not having the job. It's very important that they know their rights, specifically if they would need accommodation. They have to ask for accommodation. It makes all the difference. And I know of people who would hide their disabilities, especially if it's an invisible disability, because they don't want that to negatively impact decisions of the hiring managers. They should be self-confident about their rights to ask for accommodations because it makes all the difference. If they're going for an interview without accommodation offered, if they need it, they would perform bad. Again, the STAR method, of course, that we are all kind of familiar with. So they need to kind of, in their interview, they need to list the situation. They need to like the way of thinking and the target and how did they achieve it and the result. What's the action? What's the target? What's the situation? And what are the results? They need to put those evidences in the resume when they're highlighting their achievements or when they are asked in an interview. So they don't open the door of performance or confirmation biases. And cultural humidity, we kind of talked about. So now we are going to jump to the job developers who would like to see the welcome to the team sign. This is a bigger fish to fry. So for the job developers, they mostly work with employers, not necessarily with the talents themselves. So they have maybe a better opportunity to discuss with employers many things. Of course, this is a very rich topic for job developers in specific, dealing with employers. However, I'm going to tap on the very important things only today. If I'm going beyond time, Jessica and Karen, please let me know. Just wait for me. I'm fine with that. Thank you. Okay, so I guess that one of the very important things for job developers to kind of communicate with the employers is, first of all, what is diversity? So I'm going to ask you all here, and I'm going to invite you all here. And again, remember, this is very safe space, no wrong answer, no judgment. So what is diversity? What do you think diversity is? And I would like to apologize about people sending messages in the chat box. Unfortunately, I kind of missed some of that, but I will make sure to have like them documented somewhere so I can answer, if not at the end of the session, after the end of the session by emails. So what is diversity in your opinion? Any ideas? Yes, please, Ashley. Thank you.
I'm raising my hand there. I think it's just like involving people from different social and ethnic backgrounds is what I would say.
Thank you so much. Great answer. Any other idea? Yes, Susan? Or maybe not, I'm not sure.
I was going to say like a blend, just variety.
Yeah. However, I really like what you mentioned, Susan. Like, I really love this word, a blend, because blend is not only diversity, it's diversity and inclusion. A variety of people of different people, talent and experience, yes. Inclusion of everyone, that's an extra layer, but thank you so much. Okay, so this is diversity. It's the practice of having people from a range of different backgrounds represented in a group or a workplace. That different background could be many, many things. Could be cultural diversity, racial diversity, religious diversity, age, sex, gender, sexual orientation, disability, socioeconomic background, political opinion, education, life experience, personality, abilities, and many others. So different people means diversity. Because sometimes people, think that diversity only means people who are coming from different countries, but that's only one layer of diversity. However, JDs might actually face many of those problems. And if we have a JD present today, please let me know, or even employment specialists as well, who might be facing very similar questions, please let me know if you relate to those questions. So employers sometimes ask, why there are sometimes conflicting workplaces with diverse teams? Like, employers sometimes, if you are trying to encourage them to have diverse teams, they would ask, oh, but we have seen many conflicts in those places. Like, why? Why would I do that while there are, problems in diverse workplaces? I would say tell them to ask themselves, oops, no, I don't want anyone to cheat. So instead, I would say, turn around and pass the ball to their court and ask them. Ask yourself what types of EDI integrated policies and procedures regulate your work environment. What are the practices? And I always kind of give that example. You can hire me in your workplace. Yay, diversity. Of course not. Like, I'm not the only diverse person, but just for the simplicity of the example. So you hired me, yay, you are diverse. How do I feel? That's inclusion. So the problem with many employers is that they think that diversity leads to inclusion, leads to equity by nature. No, that's not true. You have to do them all. And we are going to expand a little bit on that. So please, if you have that question from any employer talking about, oh, but there are conflicts, like, you know, they come from different culture, they cannot fit, they're not the best fit, they don't know things here, you know, that's the monoculture approach, because they don't put in place systems that would include these people. And that's why they have those conflicts. It's not because they're coming from a different place. It's not because of them. It's because of you. But of course, JDs won't say that, you know, that way to the employer, not that boldly, but anyway, you'll find your ways. I'm a diverse employer. I'm diverse. Why my team doesn't seem to benefit from diversity as everyone claims? Like, Wessam have talked a lot actually about, you know, diversity, and diversity is great, and we are hearing this all the time. I am diverse. I don't see that benefit happening. Tell me. Why? Okay, maybe ask them the question in a different way. How your diverse team feels every day coming to work. What's your role in this experience? What do you do? Like, I come, people don't respect me. People don't respect my accent. They don't respect my attire. Oh my gosh, they make their potluck every year in Ramadan, the month that I fast. I never get to eat that delicious food. You know what I mean? So what's your role in those experiences? It's not because they're not social. That's actually an actual example that I have heard. So employers think, oh, Muslims are not social. They never come for 3 years in a row. They never came to the potluck. Yeah, it's because it's a Ramadan. They don't eat in Ramadan, come on. Right? Okay, so oh, my camera is not happy. Okay, so after saying that, do you think that diversity is enough? I have diverse people in my place. Is that enough? Honestly, it is harmful if I have diversity without inclusion and equity. It's what we call tokenism, checking boxes. It's bad for everyone. If I'm not having the full system in place, don't do it. It's better than do it and making people suffer and making your organization suffer from the bad reputation. All right. So of course not. So what else is important? That's the difference between diversity and inclusion. And that's why I really liked both Ashley's and Susan's inputs, because they really represent that visual here. So diversity is, you know, differences that exist in a certain place. Inclusion is the blend. They're all coming together. So if they're not coming together, they're scattered, nothing is going to be achieved. You are not going to be able to see a full picture. So, and oops, and this is what we call tokenism. Again, an inclusive workplace that, diversity that lacks genuine inclusion is tokenism. An inclusive workplace doesn't only have diversity of people, it has diversity of people involved, respected, and heard, and trusted. And there's a great exercise that I'm gonna actually ask you to Google it. Unfortunately, I won't be able to run it today because of the time, but I would really encourage all of you to look at it. It's called the Circle of Trust. So please consider to look at that one. Okay, all right. I am gonna, listen to my job developer as an employer. I'm gonna be diverse, I'm gonna be inclusive. I promise I will do my potluck in another time if I have a Muslim employee. However, another question comes up. Why should I offer different accommodations if I'm already an equal employer? We always hear that term. We are an equal employer. We encourage everyone to apply, right? We are equal employers. Equity or equality? What even the differences? Any insights? Why employers should accommodate people differently? And is it equality or equity, and what the difference even is? Equity is fairness, equality is even distribution. Exactly, that's so true. Thanks, Natasha. I always tend to give that example just for the sake of simplicity and making things a little bit lighter. However, they're not light topics for sure. I'm gonna ask you a question. If you have two cell phones, okay? One cell phone, that's that very old Nokia, Motorola, whatever, antenna one back in the days. I'm old, I use those. And you have a new one that's iPhone. I really don't have those, I don't know. There is a lot of the range, it's like, it's crazy. Pro, whatever. That very smart phone, new phone, whatever. And then you brought two SIM cards that are very similar. Like not very similar, the same exact, okay? Same exact SIM cards, and you try to put both of them in both phones. Do you think that both phones will be able to enable you to make phone calls? Will they both work and making you make phone calls, or one will work and one won't? Any insights?
I think the end user's experience is just going to be different.
Yes. Honestly, in that specific example, one will not work at all because the SIM card is not compatible, doesn't get in. So though that you have used the same exact input, you're not able to get the same exact output. That's equality. That's equal employers, what equal employers do. They offer some same things and they expect same output. People are different. They don't need same things. They need needed things. And needs are different because people are different. So inputs or outputs. Ask your employers to reflect. Why a diverse employer might still face retention challenges. So, okay, I've gotten people in the door, I'm inclusive a bit, or maybe more, but I still have retention challenges. Ask them. Ask yourself, are your diverse team represented in leadership teams? That's another very big problem. If you are diverse, so you have me. If you are inclusive, so I'm bringing all of myself, I'm not afraid to put my hijab, I declare that I'm a Muslim woman, people respect me, they're nice to me. But if I'm not seeing my future, if I don't have any hope to go up the rank, would I stay? Would you stay? Or would you look for other opportunities? It's Maslow's theory. People need that level of need sometime, right? So employers need to be having equitable, not equal, equitable access to learning and development opportunities and growth opportunities. Otherwise, you won't get the benefits of diversity. That's why employers don't think that diversity matters. because they think that diversity is inclusion is equity. They don't do anything or take any measures in regards to inclusion, not any, but they don't necessarily do what's needed from them from an inclusivity lens or what's needed from them from an equity lens. They just focus on diversity in many times. And this is a great visual that I always try to share with my colleagues, my employer partners about equality versus equity. And there is even more, which is the empowerment, in which they remove the whole barrier. And this is a very different topic that we'll discuss later, maybe. So whether we call it equity, diversity, inclusion, because also this is kind of a big topic. I don't know why it's big, but people are asking all the time, is it equity, diversity, inclusion, diversity, equity, and inclusion, equity, diversity, inclusion, indigeneity? It doesn't matter. What matters is to make them all, to implement them all. Okay. So now our job developers might face that very important question from employers. Oh my gosh, Wessam, you have talked about diversity, inclusion, accommodation, knowing cultures. That's a lot. Why would I do all of this? Why do I need it in the first place? I'm good to go with my team or, a bunch of white folks. I'm good. Right? Why should I do that? Why do I bear all of these costs and thoughts? And very legitimate question. Honestly, very legitimate, right? However, of course, there are benefits. Let's ask, and I usually kind of tweak those questions or what we call business case to the sector that I'm trying to pitch that for them. So if they are for profit, it's a bit different than for the not-for-profit organization than other organizations. So if we're talking here about the for-profit organization, which I assume, and I might be wrong, that they are kind of the majority of the employers that you are trying to help your clients get in their organization. So the very first thing that you can ask the employer, do you think market share? Do you think increasing your market segment? So that pie that has the market share, whether your market is your community or your community and other communities, or you're a multinational companies or whatever. So you have that pie that represents your market, the client that you sell things to or provide services to, right? So imagine that pie actually is changing. It's not the very same pie that you used to serve 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Now that pie is changing. And your market share, so you always have that pie and then, a triangle that would represent your share, right? So if that pie is changing, your share is changing if you are not adjusting the change to your organization. You know what I mean? So for example, let's say that, 50 years ago, 99% of my clients were of the dominant group. Now, 91% are of dominant group. So this difference of 8% or 9%, if I'm not adjusting accordingly, I'm gonna lose them. Because honestly speaking, if I am going to a place to buy a commodity, and I have two stores as options, one of them looks like diverse, has a sales associate, not necessarily from my background, but any background, and another one that has only white people. Do you think that I would feel safe in which store? Where I would go to ask for my needs. And I would be feeling that I'm not gonna be looked at or getting offended or whatever. I'm gonna target the place that has diversity, because the first message that is communicated naturally here is that you're welcome. But on the other side, you're not sure. Maybe you're welcome, but there is nothing to say so. So if you're not actually doing this, you're losing as for profit. You're losing the profit generated by this segment. Do you think reputation and market positioning? That's exactly what we have talked about before. So I have a bad experience in a store because people were looking at me all the time, following me as if I'm gonna steal something or whatever. I'm gonna go out, put my review, send the post, everyone would know about it. Do you want to position yourself really that way, or having someone who's culturally sensitive who would understand the different needs of different people? Do you think increased productivity, creativity? I think that we have talked a lot about, you know, how people appreciate specifically their first jobs in Canada. And also, they come from different backgrounds, so they have different approaches. So different ways of solving problems that could be very innovative to the workplace. Do you think globalization? Do you want to open markets, you know, nationally? What better than having people who speak different languages, having different connections, knowing different cultures that would help you achieving that target? So imagine only from an economic perspective, how much you're losing versus how much you're benefiting if you have diversity versus you're lacking diversity in your workplace. From a very pure economical perspective, I haven't talked about, you know, social aspects. I haven't talked about, you know, moral aspects. I haven't talked about humanity aspects. I haven't talked about any of those. Only from a profit perception, perspective. Okay, Wessam has talked really a lot today. So now we understand what's diversity, what's inclusion, what's equity as a job developers, how to kind of pitch the business cases to employers. Okay, where to start from? If I am an employer and I'm gonna ask my job developer, okay, I got it, I bought it. How can I do that? Send them my way. That's the easiest way. I guess, again, it's knowing awareness is the first thing, but we need to make sure that from awareness, we are moving into actions. So the very first thing is that they need to identify or assess their EDI current profile. So where they are at, do they lack diversity? Do they have diversity while lack inclusivity? Do they lack diversity inclusivity? Do they have diversity inclusivity but not equity? And then from there, what is their target? And then how to close those gaps. Most of the employers are here. And this is the example that I was referring to. So for white people, probably the best fit is the fifth white person. So traditional policies, best fit hiring approach, that's where we are at. I very much disagree with the word best fit, by the way, just to acknowledge. And we want to be there. So EDI integrated policies, inclusive hiring practices. So you need to work on your recruitment practices and diversify your pipelines. One team, one culture, monoculture, comfort zone. Leaders don't represent our communities. We want people to love their jobs, so we need diverse culture. Leaders bring innovative approaches. That's to help with retention. How? Ask us. Refer them to me, please. I'm happy to support them. Yes, so that was our conversation today. I hope it was good for you.